"See you tomorrow, James," Sarah smiled, wiping the counter, the familiar gesture automatic after months of his visits. He always nodded, that quiet warmth in his eyes, a silent promise of return. Then she saw them, suits, polished shoes clicking ominously, earpieces catching the dull light, CIA badges flashing under open jackets. Who was the man she served pie to every Tuesday? Sarah placed the generous slice of apple pie, its crust perfectly golden and steam gently rising, in front of James. He smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face, lighting up his intelligent eyes. "Looks perfect, Sarah. Truly perfect. You make the best pie in the entire city. Maybe the state." His voice was soft, a comfortable, low rumble that easily got lost amidst the lunchtime clatter of Leo's diner. But Sarah always listened for it. It was one of the small, predictable pleasures in her often unpredictable day-juggling orders, cranky customers, and perpetually sore feet. James was her favorite regular, hands down. Not just because he was polite, which was a rare commodity, during the frantic lunch rush, but because he felt like stillness. He'd appear 3, maybe 4 times a week, like clockwork around 12:15 p.m. Always sat at the far end of the counter near the window but slightly angled away from the main flow. Always ordered the daily special if it involved meatloaf or chicken, pot pie, otherwise defaulting to a simple grilled cheese on rye and, inevitably, a slice of whatever pie Sarah recommended that day, claiming her judgment was infallible. He was black, maybe early 60s, trim, with neatly graying temples. His clothes were always clean, pressed, but unremarkable. Comfortable slacks, a button-down shirt in muted colors, sometimes a well-worn tweed jacket slung over the back of the stool when the Chicago weather turned biting. He didn't look wealthy, didn't look destitute. He just looked like he could blend into any background. While he ate, he'd read the physical newspaper cover to cover, with meticulous concentration, occasionally making small, precise notes in a little black leather-bound notebook he produced from an inner jacket pocket. He spoke politely, always remembered her name, even asked about her son's science fair project last month, listening with genuine interest as she described the baking soda volcano disaster. He felt normal, comfortingly normal, grounded. A calm presence in her often chaotic workday, serving lukewarm coffee and attitude adjustments. She knew almost nothing truly personal about him, despite the easy familiarity that had grown between them over months of brief counterside chats. He deflected questions about his own life with a practiced gentle vagueness that discouraged probing without causing offense, said he was semi-retired, involved in some consulting work, enjoyed keeping up with current events. Lived somewhere nearby, she assumed, perhaps one of the older brownstones a few blocks over, though he never specified. He never mentioned family. Never had anyone join him. Just James, the quiet man at the counter, a pleasant, reliable punctuation mark in her week. Today was Tuesday. Chicken pot pie special day, followed by apple pie. Predictable. Comforting. James meticulously folded his newspaper, placing it beside his empty plate, finished the last bite of his special, savoring it, then took a slow, appreciative bite of the pie Sarah had just delivered. "Perfect," he murmured again, closing his eyes briefly in genuine satisfaction. "The crust is particularly flaky today." Sarah grinned, feeling a familiar warmth spread through her. Simple praise, but it meant something coming from him. Told you, secret ingredient. The secret was just using cold butter, but she liked the little joke between them. She refilled his coffee cup, lingering for a moment longer than necessary, wiping a non-existent smudge on the counter. "Big plans for the rest of the day, James? Solving the world's problems from your armchair?" He chuckled softly, a pleasant sound. "Just the usual routine, Sarah. A few errands down by the Riverwalk, perhaps. A bit of reading. Enjoying the quiet before the evening rush." He slid a $10 bill across the counter for his $8 and change meal. "Keep the change." He always tipped reasonably, never ostentatiously, never stingily. Unlike the businessmen who'd slap down a card and leave pocket lint, or the students who'd argue over splitting 50 cents. Another reason she liked him. He gathered his newspaper and notebook, tucking the notebook carefully away. He slid off the stool with a surprising lack of effort for a man his age, and gave her a small, courteous nod. "See you later in the week, Sarah, and thank you again for the excellent pie." "See you, James. Have a good one," she called after him as he pushed open the heavy glass diner door, the little bell above it jingling merrily, and stepped out onto the bustling Wacker Drive. Sidewalk. She watched him go for a moment, a familiar, comforting sight weaving through the lunchtime pedestrians. Then the comforting normalcy shattered into a million confusing pieces. Two men materialized seemingly out of thin air on the sidewalk, instantly flanking James as he took his first few steps away from the diner. They hadn't been there a moment before. Sarah would have noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, impossibly imposing. Dressed in identical, impeccably tailored dark suits that screamed expensive and anonymous. Mirrored sunglasses hid their eyes, despite the weak, overcast sky. Tiny, almost invisible wires snaked from their ears down into their collars. They moved with an unnerving, synchronized precision, like perfectly calibrated machines, falling into step beside James, one slightly ahead, one slightly behind, boxing him in without actually touching him. Their presence wasn't protective in a friendly bodyguard way. It felt possessive, controlling. James, however, didn't react, didn't startle, didn't look alarmed or surprised in the slightest. His expression remained neutral, perhaps acquiring a subtle shade more seriousness, a certain tension around his jaw she hadn't noticed before. He simply continued walking at his unhurried pace, the two men now forming a tight, impenetrable V around him, clearing a path through the oblivious pedestrians who instinctively sidestepped the wall of dark-suited intensity. Sarah stared, bewildered, the heavy glass coffee pot suddenly feeling unsteady in her hand. Who were these guys? They looked like security? High-level corporate bodyguards? Or something more official? Like the Secret Service agents she saw on TV surrounding politicians? But James? Her quiet, unassuming James, the man who read newspapers and enjoyed apple pie? Why would he need that kind of escort? It made absolutely no sense. As the trio passed directly in front of the diner window, moving with silent, urgent purpose, the man walking slightly behind James turned his head briefly, his mirrored sunglasses sweeping the street, scanning the surrounding buildings, even flicking momentarily towards the diner window where Sarah stood frozen. As he turned, his suit jacket shifted slightly, pulled open by the movement. Just for an instant. Maybe less. But Sarah's eyes, trained to catch fleeting details like empty water glasses or dropped forks, snagged on it. Clipped discreetly but visibly to the inside pocket of his expensive jacket, unmistakable in its design. A small, shield-shaped badge. Gold eagle, sharp lettering. 3 bold initials engraved across the center. CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. Sarah felt the coffee pot slip slightly in her grasp, hot liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. CIA? James? Her James? The man who asked about her son's science fair project? The man who debated the merits of different crossword puzzle techniques with old Mr. Henderson? Her mind struggled violently to reconcile the image of her gentle, ordinary customer, the man she felt a quiet kinship with the sudden, jarring reality of heavily armed, stone-faced federal agents escorting him down Main Street like a character out of a spy thriller. It didn't compute. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, revealing a hidden, unbelievable dimension beneath the familiar surface of her daily routine. She watched them turn the corner at the end of the block, James and his silent, suited guardians disappearing from view as quickly and unnervingly as they had appeared. The street outside returned to its normal rhythm. Cars honked impatiently. Pedestrians hurried past, heads down against the wind, oblivious to the clandestine drama that had just unfolded. But the ordinary fabric of Sarah's day, her perception of her quiet customer, had been irrevocably ripped apart. Who was James? What did semi-retired really mean? Was consulting work code for espionage? What kind of current events was he meticulously noting in that little black notebook? Was his quiet, unassuming demeanor a genuine personality trait, or was it carefully cultivated cover, honed over years of practice in a world she couldn't begin to imagine? The questions swirled in her head, a frantic buzz displacing thoughts of unpaid bills and what to make for dinner. The entire interaction, every brief conversation, every shared glance over the past few months, replayed in her mind, now cast in a stark, suspicious new light. His vague answers about his past, his observant eyes that always seemed to take in more than he let on, his meticulous reading of the newspaper. Was he just reading headlines, or scanning for coded messages, specific phrases, hidden signals? It sounded crazy, ripped from the pages of a cheap paperback novel. But after seeing those badges, nothing felt impossible anymore. The rest of Sarah's shift passed in a blur of forced smiles and automatic movements. She refilled coffees, delivered plates, wiped down tables, but her mind was elsewhere, constantly replaying the scene outside the window. The diner, usually a place of familiar, grounding routine, suddenly felt different, potentially precarious. Were other customers watching her? Did anyone else notice James's escort? Was she imagining the slight extra attention from the burly man reading a paper 2 booths down? Paranoia pricked at her senses. James didn't come back the rest of that week. His usual stool remained conspicuously empty. Each time the bell above the door jingled, Sarah's head would snap up, a knot of anticipation and dread tightening in her stomach. Was it him? Was it them? She felt a strange mix of disappointment and a growing, gnawing apprehension. Was he okay? Had something happened? Had his quiet routine been permanently disrupted? Or had his cover been blown somehow, forcing him to relocate, erasing himself from her life as suddenly as his escorts had appeared? She missed their quiet conversations, the small island of predictable normalcy he represented in her day. Now, even that memory of normalcy felt tainted, like a carefully constructed stage set whose backdrop had just collapsed, revealing the hidden machinery behind the illusion. She found herself scanning the faces of strangers on her commute, wondering about their hidden lives. She even typed James Consulting Chicago CIA into her phone's search bar late one night, scrolling through pages of meaningless results, feeling foolish but unable to stop herself. The following Tuesday arrived, heavy with unspoken anticipation. Sarah polished the already gleaming chrome counter, her nerves frayed. Pie day again. Would he show? Part of her hoped desperately that he would, that everything would somehow reset to normal. Another part of her was terrified of what his return or continued absence might mean. Around 12:20 p.m., the bell above the diner door jingled. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. Her head snapped up. It was James, standing just inside the doorway, looking exactly, impossibly, the same as always. Same gentle smile playing around his lips. Same unassuming clothes, today a navy button-down and gray slacks. He was alone. No imposing suits flanking him. No earpieces visible. Just James. Relief washed over her, so potent it almost made her dizzy, quickly followed by a fresh torrent of unanswered questions and a surge of adrenaline. He slid onto his usual stool at the end of the counter. "Morning, Sarah," he said, his voice the same calm, comfortable rumble. As if nothing had happened. As if an entire week of anxiety and speculation hadn't just consumed her waking thoughts. As if she hadn't seen him flanked by CIA agents. Sarah stared at him momentarily, speechless. The coffee pot she'd instinctively grabbed, feeling heavy and alien in her hand. Should she say something? Ask him point blank about the men? Pretend she hadn't seen anything, retreat back into the comfortable ignorance of their previous dynamic? Her mind raced, tumbling over the possibilities, the risks. "James," she began, her voice slightly breathless, betraying her inner turmoil. "Are you... Is everything all right? Didn't see you last week." It was a weak probe, but the only one she dared make. James met her gaze, his eyes holding hers steadily, calmly. There was a depth there she hadn't noticed before, or perhaps hadn't wanted to acknowledge. A hint of guardedness, of quiet steel beneath the gentle surface. "Everything is perfectly fine, Sarah," he said quietly, but with an unmistakable air of polite finality that gently but firmly closed the door on further questions. "Just had some unexpected out-of-town business to attend to. Necessary travel." He unfolded his newspaper, the crisp rustle seeming unnaturally loud in the suddenly focused silence around the counter. "Good to be back, though, especially on Pi Day. Is there any of that incredible apple left today?" Sarah hesitated for a beat, studying his calm, composed face. He was offering her normalcy, a return to their established script, an invitation to ignore the crack she'd glimpsed in his facade. Taking a shaky breath, she nodded slowly, reaching for a clean plate. He wanted normalcy. She would give it to him, for now. But she couldn't unsee what she had seen. The polite smiles, the discussions about the weather, the compliments on her pie. It all felt profoundly different now, overlaid with the chilling knowledge of his hidden life, his probable connection to a world of shadows and secrets. Who was the man, sitting at her counter, calmly reading about world events while possibly being capable of what? Was James even his real name? The hidden truth wasn't just that James likely worked for, or was deeply involved with, the CIA. It was the stark, unsettling realization that the ordinary world she inhabited, the mundane routine of her diner, life might be intricately interwoven with extraordinary, potentially dangerous secrets. Secrets hidden behind the most unassuming faces, revealed only by a chance glimpse of a badge, leaving her forever questioning the reality beneath the quiet surface of everyday life, wondering what other invisible dramas played out just beyond the steam-fogged windows of Leo's diner. She placed the pie in front of him, the familiar gesture feeling strange, waited. Their fingers brushed for a fleeting second as he reached for his fork. Just a regular customer. Just another Tuesday. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. And Sarah had a feeling it never would be again. How much do we truly know about the people we see every day, and what extraordinary secrets might be hiding behind the most ordinary routines? Drop your theory in the comments and subscribe for more stories where spies might just be enjoying a slice of pie.